Good day and welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to do a shootout between Freddie Hubbard, the 1966 RVG stereo pressing of Ready for Freddie, and the brand new Blue Note Classic Vinyl Series reissue, and this 1975 pressing, twofer, Herbie Nichols, The Third World, taken from the original 10-inch pressings, against this beautiful new Tone Poet release. Volume 1 and 2, Blue Note 5069, beautiful. This is one of the best looking Tone Poets I've seen. These were originally the two 10-inch covers, which I have seen, but not in good shape. And there aren't as many photos to go around. That's at Hackensack. But first, let's jump into the Freddie Hubbard record. Freddie Hubbard, one of the great jazz trumpet players of all time, sort of oddly overshadowed these days by Lee Morgan. Lee Morgan was perhaps a more lyrical player, perhaps had a more a fuller, sweeter tone, but Freddie Hubbard could play anybody on the table. Amazing technique, aggressive, powerful. Made some classic records for Blue Note, including Open Sesame, Going Up, and Hubcap. This Ready for Freddie is from 1962 with the lineup of Freddie Hubbard, Bernard McKinney on euphonium. You don't hear that every day. Wayne Shorter on tenor, McCoy Tyner on piano, Art Davis on bass, Elvin Jones on drums. This is a mother of a record. Freddie Hubbard passed in 1992. I'll tell you a funny story. Back when I lived in Charlotte, there was a jazz club that had been turned into a jazz club, Humboldt Theater. And around 1987, I guess, we were there to see Freddie Hubbard play at the Visual Light. Carl Allen was on drums. I forgot the rest of the lineup. Everybody showed up. The band was there. Freddie never showed up the entire night. He just never showed. I don't know. He just didn't show. Then we found out later that he couldn't show up because he was with a woman and he didn't feel like leaving. It's a true story. And eventually they did the concert over again, and Freddie played, and it was an amazing concert. One of the best jazz concerts I'd ever seen as a young wannabe jazz cat back in the day. Listening first to this classic series reissue, to the first track, Arietus, A-R-I-E-T-U-S. I wrote down here in my grubby mitts on my little overly expensive pad. Excellent, clear. The trumpets are really up front. This has a really warm, creamy sound overall. The images are super hard panned left and right. You have Freddie in the left side, then the rest of the band, including Wayne Shorter, in the right side. Everything was very crisp. It wasn't etched, which is great. Bass has good weight, tight, deep, smooth, creamy. When Freddie Hubbard solos in the left channel, it's very up front. I mean, it's a really revealing, transparent reissue. That did a beautiful job on this reissue. I was pretty knocked out by it overall. When Wayne Shorter comes on the left channel, the tenor sounded slightly distorted, and I cleaned my stylus. It didn't make any difference, just very slightly. Everything is really super hard panned left and right. Freddie Hubbard, of course, went on to record for CTI with the great Red Clay and Skydive records. I believe First Light was another one. Those are his best-selling records, better selling than the Blue Notes, I believe. Even though I think my favorite Freddie Hubbard record on Blue Notes probably Open Sesame, the record of Tina Brooks tunes. He's so amazing. He was such an interesting personality. He also played in the VSOP in place of Miles, Tony, Herbie, Ron, and Wayne. They did that Tempest in the Coliseum record, which I think has been reissued. That's a pretty amazing record. Switching to my UA copy, which I have two UA copies. This one has a big ugly wrinkle here, but this one, the record has the RVG stereo stamp in it, the other one doesn't. Even though it's a UA black label pressing, black and blue, which is 72 or something, RVG stereo is the 1966 Liberty. So as always, Blue Note didn't waste anything. But the RVG stereo copy of this, 1966, the bass is looser, it's less defined. There is more, as is often the case on all of these, I don't know why, there's more depth of the instruments in the studio. On Freddie's horn, it doesn't quite have the upfront intimacy and purity of the classic vinyl reissue, but there is more depth. You can hear the hall. You can hear, I assume it's Englewood Cliffs by this time. And there's just depth, there's reverb, there's a sense of of an instrument in a space. The classic vinyl doesn't have that. I don't know why. Is one better than the other? Nope, they're just different. I think you'd be more than happy with this. The sound overall is just excellent. The drums are super clean, as is the bass. But back to the RBG. Actually, the drums have a little more air because on the RBG stereo, 66 pressing, everything has more air. The drums have more air. Wayne's tenor on the right channel has more air and sounds a little less compressed almost. And the panning from left to right isn't so hard, which I don't know what would account for that. There seems to be a little slight more bleed between left and right tracks, a little more blend, so the left and right panning isn't so stark, and that's a little more musical. I don't know what would account for that. It's very strange. Tenor is less creamy, more tart. The instruments just sound a little less isolated. They have more air, more sense of being in the studio, less intimacy, less upfront, less dense, but more air. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But all things considered, this is a beautiful reissue, and I think you'd be really happy to get this. I did the same comparison display with Herbie Nichols' The Third World. Herbie Nichols, another great jazz pianist who died too young, had his own conception. On first listen, you might think he sounds like Monk, but he wasn't like Monk. He, if anything, he played more in the higher register of the piano, with more sort of trinkling, falling down the staircase kind of runs, and really inventive. And even the arrangements are really unusual. There's kind of a unsettled quality, and the playing is very, I don't want to say hurried, but it's very energetic. The rhythm section on these two original 10-inch records is Art Blakey and Al McKibben. And the difference between these two was really stark. Really, really stark. My next door neighbor, Jean-Marc, told me as much the other day that he preferred this. And the difference is, this is sort of a smaller signal, but there's a lot more treble, and there's more energy and life. And things sound a little small because for whatever reason, when they made the transfer from the 10-inch, I don't remember these ever being reissues. I think they went straight from the 10-inch to this, because this is everything Herbie Nichols did. These sound sort of trebly. There's not a lot of frequency range to any of the instruments, so you're hearing like the hi-hat is like really loud in the mix. The treble, everything is kind of trebly and a little bright in absolute terms. But very fun to listen to, lots of air, really zippy. You don't really notice that it's sort of a trebly recording until you put this on. And this has no treble. This almost sounds very, very veiled. It's really strange. It's much warmer and much more veiled, but it lacks the top end of this. This sounds more like a contemporary, actually it doesn't sound like a contemporary recording. Maybe they thought this will sound better on the greater variety of systems, but I was just how shocked these two sound differently. And this is still not hard to find. This is 15 bucks. I saw there were about 15 of these on Discogs starting at around 20 bucks. I'm not saying this is better than this. I'm just saying they sound very, very different. This sounds kind of swampy, a little muddy. The instruments seem veiled. This is the opposite. This is all treble energy and detail, air. Art Blakey sounds really energetic. The bass has a lot of tautness, tension. You can hear more fingers on the keys than you can on this, which is just kind of strange. I don't get it. This is the most unusual shootout I've ever heard of these recordings, because they sound so incredibly drastically different. These are these Blue Note reissue series twofers are universally really cheap to find. Some of them sound incredible, some of them don't. But until they did this Tone Poet, this is the only place you could find this Herbie Nichols stuff, or on an original 10-inch. I believe I'm correct about that. I don't think these have been reissued elsewhere. I haven't looked in Discogs. Maybe the Japanese did it. What else did I say here? This is 1975. They're both mono. Yeah, very bassy, more depth, but everything lacks crispness and air. But there's a noticeable lack of upper treble zip. So, I don't know. For my money, I'd search this out if it was me. So anyway. And also, the copy I bought this at Jazz Record Center, skips like a mofo. I gotta take it back. The Freddie Hubbard played beautifully, just beautifully. I have a new SPU cartridge which is kind of a romantic, lush sound, but has plenty of top-end air. So anyway, that's today's Shootout, baby. Thanks a lot for joining me, and have a great week. Bye-bye.